This week's question of the week comes from one of our viewers who wrote to me and he said, I'm a blue belt competitor at a hobbyist gym. And he's had a lot of success competing in, the local tournaments there. But his gym is a hobbyist gym, that doesn't have a lot of competitors there to really help test him and get him ready for competitions. And he's trying to find a way to train without leaving the gym, finding another school, but to help prepare him for competitions. And that is this week's question of the week, is how do you go about preparing for competitions when you don't have people who are also competitors or maybe people at your level? So, great question. Really glad you asked it, and I'm excited to tackle it. So, I had a similar situation, but as a black belt when I opened this gym in 2016, because it was just me, my wife, who was a brown belt at the time, and then, really just a bunch of white belts and maybe, like a handful of blue belts or purple belts that maybe had moved in from other areas or transferred in, from other schools. And, almost every year I compete at the Pan American Championships, I compete at the Master Worlds. For years I've been doing local Jiu Jitsu tournaments. So throughout most of my Jiu Jitsu journey, I've been an active competitor, but here I was in 2016, and I didn't have other people to really get me ready for tournaments. And so what I found and how I got prepared to do my tournaments is I focused more on positions and working new skills. And what I mean by that is I consistently, even today at 55 years old, when I roll with people, I let them just pass my guard, go into side control, go into mount, get to my back, and just start the roll off just like that, like wherever they go. And I don't provide any kind of resistance to stop it. And then once they get to that position, that dominant position, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna start moving. I'm gonna start doing my thing. And I would have people come in to visit me, like brown belts, and be like, yeah, you just start in side control. And they're like, oh, really? And like sometimes, man, I had a heck of a time surviving or getting out. Like especially like one of my black belts, when he first came to me, he was a brown belt, started in side control, and he has one of the best side controls I've ever felt. It was a big problem. And then another one of my black belts, when he came to me, he was also a brown belt, but he had a 6 side control too, but very different, because what I didn't realize was he wasn't just a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt, he was also an experienced judo black belt, and his side control was a big problem. So sometimes just having training partners come in like that, but starting off in just horrible positions and then working my escapes, seeing if I can survive, not knowing how they're going to attack me. Sometimes even like a white belt can be a great training partner for me, because maybe he has a wrestling background, and I let that match start off, that roll start off in side control, and then work to survive. And so part of the key is, 1, put yourself in bad positions, but 2, I don't bring my A game to my regular sparring sessions in class. Like, I work on techniques that I want to add to my game. So let's say, there's some side control escape that I've been wanting to add to my game. Well, I start to roll off in bottom side control, and then I'll work this particular escape until I get really good at it, So I may end up rolling with people that cause me all kinds of problems, when I'm in bottom side and I'm not using my best escapes. Same thing when they have my back and I'm not using my best escape, to survive, or, when I'm in bottom mount, or whatever the positions are. So when I'm going for submissions in those rolls, even against white belts or blue belts or purple belts, I'm working submissions that aren't my A game submissions. I'm working stuff that I wanted to add to my game. Same thing with the escapes or the passes, stuff that, aren't in my normal wheelhouse, but I want to add to my game. So, because anytime you're learning a new technique and you want to get proficient at it, the first time you try that technique, after you learn it, if you try it in a roll on a black belt, there's a good chance it's going to fail. But that's how the white belts benefit the upper or more experienced belts, is instead of rolling with that white belt and say it's a 5-minute roll and you tap them out 15 times in 5 minutes, nobody's getting anything out of that. But instead, if you roll with that white belt, you let them get mount, you let them take your back, you let them get side control, and work not your best escapes, work escapes that you want to add to your arsenal. Work those escapes, and then that way it's a good training session for both you, because you're experimenting, you're developing, and the white belt, instead of just being destroyed in a 5-minute round, is actually getting to play some offense, to work their attacks. And the thing is like we always say in jiu-jitsu, leave your ego at the door, because when you start in horrible positions like that, sometimes you're gonna get tapped. And it's like, good, because that means you have to learn. It's like, okay, if I let this junior belt start in this position and they tap me, like, my defense wasn't as good as I thought it was. And I need to figure out, what did I do wrong? And you learn a lot. I learn a lot more when I get tapped than I do when I tap others. Same thing with tournaments. I've learned more from my tournament losses than my tournament victories. So put yourself, if you're in a hobbyist gym and you like to compete, put yourself in those bad positions so you can develop. And don't bring your A game to every roll. Add moves that you want to make work, that you want to add to your game, and use those to use those rolling sessions as training sessions, not as, I'm going to duplicate me fighting for the world championship every roll in class. It's like, no, you're not going to grow that way. So that is what I did, and it helped me, to win local IBJJF tournaments, and I got to the podium at both the Pans and the Master Worlds using that type of techniques. I never won the Master Worlds, and I never won gold at the Pans or Master Worlds, but I was able to get to the podium several times using that training method, even though I didn't have training partners that were, fellow black belts at my level at that time when I started the school. Now, I got like 10, 11 Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belts that train with me regularly. So I get all the competitive training I can handle. But, if you're in a place where you don't have that, I would suggest that particular technique to help you grow. So I hope that's helpful. Anybody got any insights? Please feel free to share, what you're doing below. If you like to compete and you're at a hobbyist type gym, and we'll all learn from it. All right, till next week. Ciao.